Welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm in Tony Robbins' jet. Good to see you. Thanks
Nice
for
to see you as well.
thanks for inviting me on your jet. I'm very excited to be here. Why is it important to be thinking of giving and contribution in order to generate wealth? When people say that, well, I don't have much to give.
Yeah.
I'm barely making enough to pay my rent, my food. How can I have the mindset of giving in order to build wealth? What would you say?
It's the only, you never get beyond scarcity. You got to start beyond it. You got to plant your feet. And so many people say, well, when I'm rich, I'll give some money.
Right.
If you won't give a dime out of a dollar, you're not, I can promise you're not going to give 10 million out of 100 million,
Right.
not a trillion years. So if you start, what I always believe is it transforms you. I had a group of kids that I went to, like when I was 31 years old, I was invited to this grade school in Houston, Texas. And each grade did a little mini assembly for me of how they used my stuff, at that year. And at the end, I was really emotional, and I was like, you guys asked me to come inspire you, you've inspired me. And so the sixth graders had only done it for 1 year, and I said, I'm gonna sponsor your college educations. I had no idea how I was gonna do it. I didn't have the money to do it, but I said, I was 31 years old.
Wow.
I was doing well, but not that well. And I said, I'm gonna pay for your college educations, but I said, here are the rules of the game. And I just made it up while I was right there. I said, you gotta keep it B average. I'll get you mentors. There's no excuse not to be above average. You gotta not use drugs. You not get yourself in prison, and you got to give me 20 hours of community service a year.
Wow.
And the reason I did that is I don't have a college education, but I knew if I got these kids who thought they needed something to be the ones to go give something, it would change their identity, it would change their life more than college.
Right.
And ironically, I think we had 70 kids originally. I lost 95 kids I was going to lose. I lost the first year, like 30 kids. And the reason was their parents did not want them to have to do community service. They said they should be receiving, they shouldn't have to work. And it was just staggering to me. But the ones that did it, some have PhDs now, went through that process. So I really believe that the secret to living is giving, as corny as it sounds. I had an experience where I was driving on the 57 freeway, not far from here in San Gabriel Valley, and it was midnight. I was driving my 1968 Volkswagen Bug, Baja Bug. And I was been in business for, a year and a half, and I was working my guts out. And I was so frustrated because, I always say that most people overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in a decade or two or three, right? So I'd been working for this year and a half as hard as I could work, and nothing was working at the level I wanted. And I was so frustrated. I was mad with myself. I was mad with the environment. I was feeling overwhelmed, stressed. It's midnight. I'm exhausted. And all of a sudden, this thought hit me, and I literally pulled over on the side of the road, and I've always kept physical journals. I still have the journal to this day. And I wrote on this one whole page, the secret to living is giving. And I sat there and I cried, because I just realized my life for the last year had gotten focused on why isn't it working instead of how do I give more. And I made that shift, and it was one of the most important shifts in my entire life. And for probably a year, things started to get better. And then, you're in business, you make mistakes, I was a young kid. And I found myself all of a sudden in a 400 square foot bachelor apartment. I'd lost the progress that I'd made. And I was so broke that I wrote about this at the end of my book, because I was trying to think, how do I get this thought across to somebody? And the most seminal moment for me was, I had, $21, $22, whatever it was, to my name. I'm living in a 400 square foot bachelor apartment. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm watching Luke and Laura on General Hospital. I was a mess. I was a total mess. And I realized I've not paid my rent, and I'm out of money. And I don't have any prospects for some new cash in the short term. How am I even gonna eat? So I decided to go to this all-you-can-eat salad bar that they had around the corner of this place called El Torito. It's still there in Marina Del Rey. And I lived in Venice. So it was about a 3-mile walk. I didn't take the car because I couldn't pay for parking, for the gas. And I walked there and I went in and I had this meal where I basically loaded up for the winter. I ate plates of food, just tacos and salads and everything else. And while I was sitting there, there was this little boy that came in. He opened the door and he was wearing this little vest, this little suit. And he, probably 9 years old, something like that, 8, 9, 10. And he held the door open, and in walks behind him this beautiful woman who was clearly his mother. And so, I definitely took it in. And then he sat down, he pulled out the chair for her, and he was just so attentive to his mother. He was just so with her that honestly I was moved. And so I finished my meal, and then I got up and I paid the bill, and it was like $6 in those days, for all you can eat salad bar, whatever it was. And so I had whatever's left, $17, $18, $19. And I walked over to this little boy before I left. And I said, hi, and I introduced myself. I said, I'm Tony. He told me his name was Paul or whatever it was. I don't remember his name. This little boy. I said, Paul, I said, you are a class act. I said, I saw you held the door open for your woman. I saw how you pulled up the chair for her. I said, taking her out to lunch like that, that is really cool. And he goes, she's my mom. Right. And I said, that's even more cool. And I said, taking her to lunch. He goes, well, I didn't take her to lunch. He goes, you know, I think he said he was 8 or 9. He said, I'm 9 years old. I don't have a job yet. You know? And I said, yes, you are taking her to lunch. And I reached in my pocket and I took all the money I had left, whatever it was, $17, $18, $19, and I dropped it in front of him. I had no plan to do this. It wasn't like manufactured. I wasn't trying to impress this woman. And he looked up at me like shocked and he goes, I can't take that. And I said, sure you can. He said, how come? I said, because I'm bigger than you are, right? And he laughed like crazy and I didn't even say another word. I just walked out the door, didn't even look at his mom.
You didn't get her number, huh?
No, I didn't get her number. And I gotta tell you, it was the most powerful experience of my life because I didn't walk home, I kind of flew home. And I should have been like, what is the matter with you? You have no money for food. You give the last little pennies you have left. But I had no fear. I had no scarcity. And I got home and I realized what I'd done. It was like, I have no money now. I have like no money, nothing, right? I was trying to conserve by going there, you know? And I don't know. I worked on a plan. I figured I'll figure this out. And the next day I got the old snail mail and came in around like noon. And I pull out this letter and there's a young man that I had loaned $1,200 to. And he had not paid me back and I was desperate for cash. I probably called him 10 times trying to track him down, not a single response. And I was so hurt and pissed. And here's the letter from this guy saying, I'm really sorry. I know you've been trying to reach me.
Wow.
I've been avoiding you. And here's the money you owe, and I'm gonna give you some interest as well. So I got, at that point, that was like more money than anything. And so once again, I'm sitting there, tears going down my face. I'm an emotional character. And I just thought to myself, you know, why did this happen? And I chose to believe, I don't know if it's true, but I chose to believe that it's because I let go of trying to just take care of myself. I did what was right. I didn't plan it. I did it spontaneously. I saw it. It felt right to me. I did it. And I felt no scarcity. And I can tell you, I've had plenty of tough times. You know, I have 18 companies and 12 I manage actively. I got 1,200 employees on multiple continents. We do $5 billion a year in sales across different industries now. I mean, it's a different world for me now. But since that, and I've been near bankruptcy multiple times in companies and things like that. I pulled it off always, never went bankrupt. But I faced really tough times. I never went back to that level of scarcity, not since that day. So it's a long way of saying, when you have nothing is when you need to give. You know, if you're gonna wait till you think you have something, you're never gonna have something of any size or scope. There's something inside the human psyche that when you do what's right and you get outside of yourself, there's something that'll click for you. And also, you know, tithing is a perfect example. I don't know anybody, regardless of religious belief, who's tithed 10% of their income for a decade and not prospered massively. And Sir John Templeton, who was the first billionaire investor, was the first person who said that to me. He said, Tony, I know you tithe, but he said, tithe more. He said, do more, give more. And he said, you'll receive more, just how it works. And I found it to be absolutely true.
Right. You continue to give more and more every year?
Yeah, well, I was looking at writing checks for $5 million. I mean, work on a book for 4 years and give up all the profits for it. And then I wanted to feed more people, so I wrote another big check above that. So, and now I'm doing it this year. I'm going to do it for the next 10 years.
Amazing, incredible. I love hearing this story. I've heard this story before, but it always captivates me. Who was the most influential person in your life growing up?
Well, my mom was, in that she taught me she demanded that I show up in a different way than most people would. Meaning she wanted me to grow, she wanted me to be successful, she pushed me incredibly hard. But also she was kind of, you know, she was a drug addict, a prescription drug addict, she overused those, and she was an alcoholic. We had no money, we lived in a 1,200 square foot house, and my 4 different fathers all lived in the living room at different stages. She had her own room, and she would call me every day on the phone, 11955, so you could bring your own phone, and I'd pick it up, and she'd give me instructions, and I'd go to the store on my bicycle, and I'd buy the groceries, and I'd make the meal. I really literally didn't see my mom most days, and I didn't understand any difference. So she gave me an incredibly high standard, and she gave me a big challenge, and she was physically abusive. She smashed my head against the wall till I bled. She poured liquid soap down my throat till I threw up, and she thought I was lying.
Wow.
And yet I loved her, and I knew she loved me, so it was confusing as hell. but she made me a practical psychologist because I had to figure out, I have a younger brother, 5 years younger, younger sister, 7 years younger, and I had to figure out how am I going to keep them from getting hurt. And if she had been the mother I thought I wanted, I wouldn't be 1/10 as driven. I wouldn't, I suffered so much, I don't want anybody else to suffer. That's why I'm as driven as I am. I don't have to do anything at this stage of my life, but I'm more driven today than when I began. So she was the most influential person. The next most influential person were a set of mentors. I had Jim Rohn, personal development speaker I went to work for when I was 17, massively influenced my philosophy. John Grinder, who started NLP, taught me strategy. He taught me how to produce results that people thought would take decades and days and minutes. And I became his top student and so forth. And then along the way, I've had incredible mentors. Peter Guber owns the NBA Warriors and the LA Dodgers and, Mandalay Pictures. One of my dearest friends for 30 years plus. Mark Benioff, I've been coaching him for 16 years from the day he started Salesforce. He told me, Tony, I'm leaving my company because of you. I'm going to start this company. Salesforce.com, we're going to do 100 million a year. Now they're doing 8 billion. So I've got some really, Steve Wynn is a mentor for me. So I have a lot of brilliant people, and I coach others and I get coached by others.
Yeah. You've been doing the work for 40 years, right?
Well, not quite.
Almost 40 years.
39. It's my 39th
39
year.
years.
39 years.
This is a question a friend of mine, Ed O'Keefe, asked. He said, with all the tools you've learned and the wealth of information over 39 years, almost 4 decades, the strategies to break people through, to help them overcome their challenges. If you had to strip them all away, you can only use one strategy or one thing to use, what would that be?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Part of why I'm effective is because I don't buy that. I'm always looking for more strategy, because one strategy will work with one person, not with another. But philosophically, I would say that the capacity to strengthen and increase your hunger is the one common denominator amongst the most successful people. Richard Branson's a good friend of mine, and Peter Guber, Steve Wynn, all these guys, they've never lost their hunger. Most people are hungry to achieve a certain amount, make a certain amount of money, and then they get comfortable and relax, or to get a certain level of fitness and then they relax. But Richard is as driven today as when he was 16 years old starting. I mean, he's like on fire, and he's 65 years old. Warren Buffett is 85 years old. He's as driven today as when, he began the journey, right? And so people that have that hunger, I believe intelligence, I love people that are wickedly smart. And I work to be wickedly smart by educating and training myself and so forth and training my brain. But there's a lot of intelligent people who can't fight their way out of a paper bag, right? Hunger is the ultimate driver, because if you're hungry, you can get the strategy, you can get the answer. If you can't model it, you can find it. So hunger, modeling would be maybe the next best skill, knowing that success leaves clues. Like, why reinvent the wheel? If someone took this plane, was Mickey's plane, who owns the Miami Heat and owns Carnival, right? I mean, you can learn so much from a man like Mickey and blow your mind what this man has been able to do in his life. And so why would I go learn by trial and error and maybe take 10 or 20 years when I could learn from somebody in a few weeks or a few months or a few hours something that could save me a decade? That's what it is. That's why I read 700 books in the first 7 years, because I was like, if somebody takes 10 years of their life, they pour it into a book, and I can read that in an hour, 2 or 3 or 4, why wouldn't I?
So how does someone continue to stay hungry, or rediscover what they're hungry about?
The best way is get around where it's better and things will hit you.
Say it again.
Get around where it's better and things will hit you. Who you spend time with is who you become. So, when I started coaching all these billionaires, there's a part of me that said, I'm as smart in certain areas as they are. I got to step my game up. It's not about the money. It's about, how can I take the invisible and make it visible? How can I find a way to add more value to other people to such an extent where economics are not a question whatsoever, and then I can take those economics and do even more where I'm not there. I look at money as portable power. I can leverage my money to do things for people even when I sleep. Now, I love doing these for people, and I work 18, 20-hour days still, but it's really nice to have the leverage of that as well.